With global trade fragmenting in the way that we have really been seeing the last 2 months, is now the time for meaningful WTO reform?
Well, absolutely, Lynn. Let me say, yes, we've been very concerned about the tariff tensions. We've been concerned about the tensions between China and the U.S. and the potential for fragmentation of world trade. As you know, we had forecasts that global trade, goods trade, would decline by about 0.2%. Just on the basis of the 10% tariffs plus the tariffs on automobiles and steel. But if you layer in the reciprocal tariffs and uncertainty, we have a contraction of 1.5%. So it's pretty serious. And of course, the fragmentation, if China and the U.S. tensions are not taken care of, are also very important, because we estimated that if the world breaks up into 2 global trading blocks, we could lose 7% in global GDP in the longer term, which is not really, which is devastating. In a way, it's worse than what happened during the 2008-2009 financial crisis. So what does this mean? We're very happy to see the U.S. and China begin to de-escalate issues, and so the potential for fragmentation is less than what we had seen. At the same time, the lessons are to ask ourselves, what do members of the WTO treasure about the system? And many of them have come to say, we really value the system. But then, what needs to be reformed? How did we get here? So this is the time I say, let's not waste a crisis. Let's use this opportunity to reform the WTO.
Given how fragmented the world order is, as you were just highlighting, who leads this process then?
The members lead the process. And again, going back to fragmentation, it's actually getting better. If U.S. and China do not decouple, and we see Secretary Bessent has said they don't want to decouple. China Vice Premier Le Fang said they don't want to decouple. I think things will get better. But in any case, that does not mean we should not reform. Members of the WTO will lead the reform because they know that we should seize this opportunity to make the changes that are needed.
On the reform side of things, where do we start? Because obviously there's a lot of concern around the dispute system itself. Also, you know, there's been question marks asked about the way that the US is using the national security exemption. So there's Section 232 investigations that have resulted in sectorial tariffs. Do you believe that the way that they are using that is in line with WTO rules? Does there need to be more clarification on that exemption?
Let me just say something before I get to that question. I think we need context here. I first want everyone to know that in spite of all the disruption to international trade, which we admit, 74%, 3/4 of world's goods trade is taking place on WTO terms. I think the world needs to know that. So a lot is going on in the right way. Second, U.S. is about 13% of world trade. There's 87% of world trade also going on. So let's have a bit of context. That's why I told everyone, let's not panic, let's chill, let's handle this in a deliberate manner. That being said, I think that the issue of the national security exception within WTO rules, it does give members the right to be able to use that exception. The issue is, what do you define as national security and under what circumstances? And I think that as part of the reform of the dispute settlement system, these are some of the tricky issues that members will have to grapple with and perhaps come to a better understanding with each other of when that exception comes in and what it means.
And I guess on China as well, we've heard analysts talking about concerns around the use of the developing country label. Again, you know, because of some of the benefits that comes with as well. So do you think, again, that needs to be looked at as part of the reform process?
Absolutely, and I hope members will think so too. You've hit on something very important, Lynn, which is it's not so much the label of what you call yourself, it's the benefits that it gives a member access to, which is the special and differential treatment we have, meaning you could have exceptions when certain agreements are made, you could take longer to implement, and so on and so forth. So the issue is, who should have access to those benefits. Whether you call yourself developing, it's not really the issue. It's what access do you have? And I think this is part of the reform that members, again, should call to. And at these APEC meetings, I'll be laying out some of these issues and asking the ministers to start thinking ahead. Because at our 14th ministerial meeting, these are some of the reform issues that ministers will have to think about, grapple with, and lay out a pathway so we can actually get it done.
There's been so much talk for so long as well about reform, right? So do you see this year as being pivotal for that progression?
Absolutely. I really see the year as pivotal, and it is because of what I told you before, never waste a crisis. I think we should use this opportunity really to move on some of the more consequential aspects of reform that are needed in the organization. A lot is going on that is good, and members treasure it. Actually, a silver lining of the crisis has been many members coming and saying, look, we value the system now. We see what predictability and stability means, and we want to make sure that goes on. But by the same token, members have admitted that they need to proceed on this reform and get it done.